This story starts in a remote corner of Idaho in August of 1992. A fugitive named Randy Weaver, a military veteran, had been eluding authorities for more than a year. He had tried to sell a pair of illegal sawed-off shotguns to a federal informant within a white supremacist group called the Aryan Nations. That group's compound was near a place known as Ruby Ridge. Randy Weaver and his family often socialized with the members of this group. He was supportive of white separatism, anti-government conspiracy theories, and he believed in a form of apocalyptic Christianity. Here's a picture of Randy Weaver with this t-shirt that says, "Just say no to Zog, the Zionist-occupied government." That's another one of the terms that circulates in these circles. Marshals had been trying to find a way to arrest Weaver, fearing that he would resist. In attempting to scout his location, agents were met by his barking dog, Striker. They retreated into a clearing, but Weaver, his 14-year-old son Sam, and his young friend Kevin all came out to see what was going on. Details here are sketchy, but what we do know is that a confrontation ensued. Shots were fired, and Weaver's son Sammy, a deputy marshal named Bill Deegan, and the dog Striker were all killed. Weaver took Sam's body into a shed and retreated into his cabin. A siege of the area started with hundreds of law enforcement agents. The next day, Weaver was wounded by a sniper when he went to check on his son's body. The family friend Kevin was also wounded, and his wife Vicky, up here in the top right-hand corner, was killed. Protesters descended on the site. I want you to pay attention to their signs. FBI, burn in hell. Secede Idaho from Fed Nation. No New World Order. Land of the free. Your home is next. For them, it was all about the overreach of the federal government. That siege lasted 10 days before Weaver was convinced to surrender. He ended up being convicted only of violating the original bail conditions, and he was fined $10,000 and sentenced to 18 months in prison. The trial was actually taking place during the siege of the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. The siege in Waco also started over guns. You will see that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms were the first to come in. That bureau had been conducting an investigation centered on the illegal manufacture and possession of machine guns and the illegal manufacture and possession of destructive devices, including bombs and grenades. The investigation showed that they believed the group had acquired 136 firearms, including assault rifles and handguns, plenty of ammunition for those weapons, and all kinds of grenades and black powder and explosive chemicals. The investigation included interviews with former members of the community, inspection and interview of a federal firearms dealer, review of documentation showing the purchase of large quantities of certain products, and records from interstate shippers. That evidence was considered sufficient to allow for a federal arrest and search warrant to be issued, and in February 1993, agents went to the compound to arrest David Koresh and to search. ATF agents from Dallas, Houston, and New Orleans were assigned to execute that warrant on February 28, 1993. I'm sharing these details to remind us that the government was not getting involved in these situations because of the political views of these folks or their religious beliefs. The issue was, in both instances, illegal weapons. It is a connection that many gun manufacturers exploit, and they often do so religiously as well. Let me give you one example. Spike Tactical, which is a company from which you can buy guns, sells an AR-15 for $1,700 called the Crusader. That's not incidental. It has Psalm 144:1 on the lower receiver. That is, it is etched into the lower receiver. You can't see it on this side of the weapon. But look at what they say. We named it Crusader and engraved Psalm 144:1 on the lower receiver to hoist the flag of our faith and to make a statement reminding our customers that we are with you. The war is here. We have a duty to defend our homeland and our way of life. You may wonder, what does Psalm 144:1 say? Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. I'm going to give you verse 2 as well. My rock and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield in whom I take refuge, who subdues the peoples under me. This is about being armed for war. It is not unlike a vision of Jesus in the book of Revelation, a vision that many of these apocalyptic movements conjures when they are talking about what the task of Christians is. Here's an image. Then I saw the heaven opened, and there was a white horse. Its rider is called Faithful and True, and righteousness he judges and wages war. His eyes are like a flame of fire, and on his head are many diadems, and he has a name inscribed that no one knows but himself. He is clothed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies of heaven, wearing fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a scepter of iron. He will tread the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God the Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh, he has a name inscribed, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's a pretty aggressive, violent picture. It's one of the things that made the book of Revelation controversial when it came time to be canonized. But what this version of Jesus leaves out is the second part in the book of Revelation, just following this. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and with a loud voice he called to all the birds that fly in the mid-heaven, Come, gather for the great supper of God, to eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of the mighty, the flesh of the horses and their riders, the flesh of all, free and slave, small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered to wage war against the rider on the horse and against his army. This is a description of the coming battle of Armageddon. But look at what happens. The beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed in its presence the signs by which he deceived those who had received the brand of the beast and those who worshipped its image. They were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. Battle over. No big trauma here. And then it says, and the rest were killed by the sword of the rider on the horse, the sword that came from his mouth. And all the birds were gorged with their flesh. So does Jesus go around striking people down, decapitating, punching, from that horse? No. The reason that I point this out is the sword is from his mouth. It's not unlike the book of Hebrews. The word of God is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing until it divides the soul from the spirit, joints from the marrow. It is able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And before him no creature is hidden, but all are naked and laid bare to the eyes of the one to whom we must render an account. The point is, Jesus slays with the word of God. The reason I am bringing up all of these points as we move into our study of Waco and the Branch Davidians is this. These incidents continue to resonate in our country. Not only did they lead to something like Timothy McVeigh blowing up the Oklahoma Federal Building and killing 168 people in 1995, And, by the way, McVeigh was not a Christian. He said he was an agnostic. He was not motivated by religion. But these events also have a straight through line to January 6th. It is definitely true that not all of the groups or the followers within these groups have religious interests. There is, nonetheless, a strong nexus among many of the anti-government sentiment with religion and violence that needs to be examined. Thus, when we begin our study of Waco and the Branch Davidians, what is important to remember is this. Waco is not about one man. It is not about David Koresh. The Branch Davidians predated him and they continue beyond him. It is not about one particular ideology, Christian apocalypticism, or running guns. It is not even about one group altogether, although we want to understand what happened at Waco. What I want us to understand is that Waco is about a certain amalgamation of people and circumstance, and its persistence has become interesting in terms of the way that we see religion, government, and ideas about freedom and what constitutes America coalescing. And that's what we are going to talk about for the next several weeks.